How's everybody doing today? Well, in the fall of 2012, I was at Southern. I was invited, well, not invited, I'd say, but more or less ordered by a class to do some volunteer work. It's not the first time I had done volunteer work. So I chose, well, I'm going to do something a little bit different. And I called my good friend Carla, and it's a special thing. I received her Bible for Christmas this year. But back on the story, I talked to her and I said, hey, what can I do for volunteer work? She said, I have this good friend Janie, where my horse is, and she's not feeling so well, so she needs some help around the farm. I said, okay, that sounds good. I got to put 20 hours in. So I go to the farm, and I start working on the fences. I'm mending them, and I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. I'm even mucking the stalls. I don't mind it. And then there's this horse, 2.5-year-old gelding. To say the least, he's on the crazy side. He won the whole southeastern United States award for a halter class, but after that he was put out to pasture. They weren't able to work with him anymore. So he was left to his own devices and decided he liked taking down fences, irritating other horses. So while I was out there mending this fence, I had a 5-gallon bucket with a hammer in it, and it's not old school where, oh wow, you know, I gotta get a handsaw out there. No, I had a golf cart, I had a generator, had a saw right there. I mean, it was nice. Put a chop saw right there, and I'm ready to go. And so I'm putting this fence together, and I'm like, I am not doing it the way they did. There was nails in it. I'm going to screw this fence together. And I'm working, I'm not paying attention to my 5-gallon bucket. It's beside me, and I'm just going along, and the next thing I know, I reach over, and the bucket's gone. And I look, and here's this horse holding my bucket. And I walk over to him, and he walks like this, and we continue this game. Finally, I get my bucket back, and I'm working. The next thing I know, he's trying to take off with a chop saw. So I thought, okay. Now, I was warned about this horse. Actually warned enough to have to sign a legal waiver for injury, if that says anything. He enjoyed trying to kick people. He enjoyed trying to kick things. So anyway, I get the fence done. I am so happy. Everything's lined up. It's nice and even across there. The next day I come back, the fence is down. And so I fixed it, and the fence is down again. I caught that horse backing up to the fence and kicking the fence off because he didn't want to go around the practice arena. He wanted to go through it. It was the shortest way. So that worked. A little frustrating. I learned a few things. You know, my determination with the horse continued. We actually started growing a bond with each other, and I thought, well, why not start working with him? He seems to like me. He tries to kick me. I can't really kick him back too well, but so we start working. And I'm training him, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to ride this horse. He's never been ridden. I'm going to be the first one on this horse. So over the months, I put a saddle pad on, and I'm walking, and he starts humping up and just starts kicking and throwing the thing off, and so months turn into over a year, and I think it was close to 2 years, and we're working with him, and he has a halter on. He's actually able to come to me, and we're working on this deal. So I put the saddle pad on one day, and I'm like, I'm ready. I am ready. Where's that saddle? And I put the saddle on, and you know, I didn't cinch it up yet. I knew this was going to be a problem. And he did not like the saddle. Now, it was okay. The saddle could land in the dirt. It was an old, you know, it was a barrel saddle. You know, anything about barrel saddles, they hold you in nice and tight. So, I get the saddle on, and I slowly work the cinch. I don't want him getting all nuts on me and going crazy. Well, that didn't work. He did it anyway. Over time, I get this saddle tight. I'm like, yes, I'm ready. And he gets the bloat out of him, and I tighten it a little bit more, and it's just cinched down just perfect, and he's in the arena. And I soon find out you can't just climb on this horse, because the horse is used to seeing you at this level. I'm going to be way up there. So I learned that. Janie told me. She goes, now the first time you get on him, you can't just jump on him, because he's going to see you as down here. Next thing, he sees you up here. Well, I had learned from prior experience, do not bring a ladder near a horse. That was an experience I learned. Now, I did see on a YouTube video this week, a little kid walked up to a horse, put a wooden ladder against it, climbed it, kicked the ladder off, and I was like, what a good horse. I like that idea. So anyway, we get this mounting block my friend Carla bought. Not sure why. I'm not even sure if she ever used it. So we decide to use it. We put this mounting block, and I walk up, and I step on the mounting block carefully, and I'm holding the horse. And he spooks. He's like, whoa, wait a second, you just got tall. And I'm like, okay, I'm working at it. And the next thing I do, over this time, I go, okay, it's time. And I jump into the saddle. Not jump, very carefully get in. But I did one thing. I did not put my feet in the stirrups. For good reason. I wanted to be able to jump off that horse. I figured, hey, why wait till they stop? You can land on your feet. Now, I did not want to put a bridle on him. I used his halter. I used a lead rope and tied it around. I did not want to make his mouth sore. So I get in him, and all of a sudden, it's like, this is magic. He's calm. And then the fire kicked in. And it was full-blown rodeo. And I was rocking. It's like, now, it's not like the rocking horse I expected. I'm going all over the place. I'm thinking, I like this barrel saddle. It's a little too small for me, but I'm stuck to that thing like glue. And I think, well, this is time. I'm jumping. I am worn out. I come out of that saddle, go to land on my feet, and I misjudged. And I hit right on my ribs. Now, this was not soft ground. This was hard, packed ground. And I'm laying there. It knocked the wind out of me. And I'm going, oh. And the next thing I realize, I'm like, where's Junior? And I feel this breathing on my neck. And I'm going, okay, I'm going to die now because he's going to step on me. And so I carefully get up after I realize he's not going to step on me. He's looking at me, and with this confused look of, you were here, you're here, now you're there. Well, anybody know what you do when you get thrown from a horse? Well, I jumped, and yes. Well, one slight issue with that. My arm here, bleeding. And he could smell the blood. I could smell the blood, and he wasn't too fond of that. So I thought, well, why not? And I'm hurting, I'm getting back on that horse. And we went around at it again. And over time, I got thrown a few times, but over time he calmed down. And then I was able to put a bridle on him, and I was able to ride him. Then I went out, and I bought a nice saddle. And I just put it on him, and it fit like a glove. And we started riding around the barn lot. And then we started showing, oh, that's not a snake. That's a drain pipe. That's okay. You know, and then we started learning how to jump over barrels, logs, anything that we could come up with. Taught him to walk on a tarp so he wasn't scared. Covered him with the tarp. I'm not into the phrase of, oh, break a horse. I'd rather train it. And if I would have given up on this idea of being thrown off the horse and walking away and going, wow, that really hurt, because it did, I would have not received the enjoyment of working with that horse. I would have not received the reward in the end of being able to ride that horse. Before I moved to Michigan, I wasn't able to get him on a trail ride yet, but I got him to the point where in the evening I could lay down in the pasture and it wouldn't bother me. He could step around me because I knew he wouldn't step on me. That is a bond. That is something that you get a reward for. You go, wow, I went from a horse that wanted to kick me, thought, he wants to kill me, to a horse that I can trust. And I could go, well, if he wanted to walk over me, I'd be okay. Some people, whoa, that's crazy. Horses don't like to kick. They don't like to step on people. They don't actually like to hurt them. They actually try to avoid it. And where I'm going with this is that we have these situations that happen in life, and I have 3 people in mind to tell you about that they all overcame something in their life, and they all ended up getting a reward. Now, in the verse earlier today, Joshua 1:7, I have not commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, I know I didn't wait for you guys, but in 1770, there was a boy. He was the oldest of, I want to say, 6 children. I believe there was 4 boys, 2 girls. He changed the world forever. In 1770, when he was born, he was a lively person. He didn't get along. He would say what was on his mind. He didn't care what people thought. Well, his father was teaching him how to play the piano. But his father did something different for him. His father, instead of congratulating him and say, hey, you're doing a great job, he would instead, every time he saw his son mess up, he would yell at him. He would beat him because he wanted perfection out of him. Like the father beating his son, yelling at his son, is how I've seen some people work with horses. How they will say, hey, we got to just show the horse who's boss, not build the trust, not reward the person. Same with horses, with the people, same kind of training. And people think, well, that's strange. Why would you relate the two? Well, one day, his mom got tired of her husband beating and yelling at her son for making a mistake playing the piano. So she stepped in and she got an unbelievable beating by her husband for interfering. Well, that left a mark in her son's memory. And he went to his mom and he said, Mom, someday I'm going to be such a great pianist that you will not have to ever be beaten again. He became such a great piano player that he started getting recognition. He started getting sponsorships. He didn't go through what some of the others had gone through church and got funding that way of the time period. He was doing public sponsorships, and he started getting training for all this education towards creating music. The problem with that is some of the people would not pay him like they promised. So instead, he would often go starving, and he wouldn't get what he needed to survive. So he would live in poverty. Over this time period, he became very well known, but in his early 20s, he started going deaf. And he could not hear the music anymore. Now that is a career-ending situation for most. But instead, he learned to hear the music in his head. And he created the music when he was completely deaf. Now, most of you, I should say, may not know who this is. I have him as writing the Fifth Symphony, or Symphony 5, and also the Moonlight Sonata. Does anybody know that person? Yes, Beethoven. He had struggles, whether it was with his father, whether it was with the hunger issue. He never gave up. He continued. Now, some of his lifestyle choices were not the best. That's what I'm not going to review today. He was raised a Catholic, but wasn't a practicing Catholic. And that brings me to John 14:27. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. I do not let hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. That is a promising text for someone that is, struggling, whether it was through abuse or hunger or striving for perfection. He wanted peace. He wanted to protect his mother. And through all that, as we can go through the Bible, no matter what we have in our lives going on, we can always go, well, what does the Bible say? No matter what we're going through, there's always an answer. There's always something that God has inspired to help us out through our times. Now, another gentleman was born in 1847. He was the youngest of 7 siblings. He was born in a middle-class family. He moved the railroad past his town over in Ohio, and so his family moved to Port Huron. Over the time he started going to school, now he had only 3 months of formal education, but by the time he was 12 years old, he was bored with just regular education. He read every book they had in the library. He was bored with mathematics. He had to find something that suited what he liked. The teachers, they did not like him because he would ask questions. He would not do it the way that they said, this must be done this way. This is the way it's always been done. This is the way it's going to always be done. And he was like, I'm going to fight that system. I don't like it. Well, after realizing he didn't like mathematics, he soon realized he liked science. And so he started educating himself with that. And he made it through a couple of years of selling candy and different odds and ends on, as a small business, as a teenager. And at the age of 19, he witnessed a train car rolling away and a young boy about to get hit by the train. So he ran and grabbed the kid and got him out of the way of the train. The father of the little kid found out what happened and gave him a job. He started working as a telegraph operator. Actually, I don't believe it was a telegraph. Yeah, a telegraph operator. Sorry. at the age of 19 for Western Union. Now, while working at Western Union, he still loved his science. He had built a little chemistry set. One of his chemistry experiments while on the train didn't go as planned, and he blew up part of the train car. And somehow he got through that. And then working a late night shift, he was working in the middle of the night, and he had his chemistry set, and he had a battery. And he wasn't aware that the battery was leaking. Now, he was in an upstairs office. And the acid was leaking down and through the floor, and then directly on top of his boss's desk, ruining everything. So the next morning, the boss comes in, and that's when his job ended, very quickly. He wasn't he wasn't fazed by this too much, so he spent the next couple of years working on ideas that he had. Even though he had poverty issues because he wasn't bringing in a lot of money, so he had to make it here or there. Well, in 1869, he made a stock ticker, I believe, patented it. I want to make sure that's right. Yes, a stock ticker. And in the 1870s, ironically, he created and patented an item called a quadruplex telegraph that he sold to his former employer, the Western Union, for $10,000, which I thought was a great idea, So he gets $10,000 and he builds a laboratory to work on his inventions. The first one in 1869, I believe it was June 1st. And he continues working on all these inventions. And through all the hunger and everything, he continues, and he sees all this disappointment because things keep failing. But every time he turned around, he thought something could be better. He saw where someone gave up, and he chose to pick up where they left off and just continue the work until it was finished. And he never stumbled upon an answer. That's what he said. He never stumbled upon the answer to solve it. He actually made this comment: none of my inventions came by accident. I see a worthwhile need to be met, and I make trial after trial until it comes. What it boils down to is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. Now, this gentleman tried and tried. He is known for a few items that we are using right now today. We're using the motion picture camera. We're using alkaline batteries. And everybody should know this one. We're using light bulbs. Who is it? Yes. Now, that brings me to Hebrews 4:16. Let us then approach the throne of grace with confidence, so that we may be able to receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. I believe Thomas Edison received grace in his time of need when he was struggling for the years after he lost his job, because God gave him the endurance. God gave him the means to just continue going on with his inventions that created a better life for everyone. Now, the interesting thing about Thomas Edison, yes, he worked on items in World War I. He passed away in 1931, but he worked on items in World War I, but he chose never to work on an item or invent anything that caused harm to people. And he was often known as, he was working against Westinghouse on the whole current war between DC and AC. So if anybody realizes, if he wouldn't have won that, everything here would have been, everything we know that's in DC would be in AC. And I think everything in AC would be DC. It's weird. But they just realized it wasn't too safe all the time. It was quite interesting. And that brings me to the third person. One night, a boy was born to a single mother who later on was married. He wasn't a person of means. He didn't have a lot growing up. He learned the family trait. Okay, he's pretty quick. He became a carpenter. At about the age of 30, he began to speak. He had no real education as a speaker, but people spoke out against him. And they would talk bad about him, talk bad about what he's speaking about, who he was. They would, talk bad about his family. But he continued. And over this time, over the next 3 years, he continued to speak out. And he continued to work on people's hearts as this great speaker and give them the truth and the hope for eternal life. He went through all kinds of harassment. I'm sure he went through hunger. He had times of need where he probably didn't have everything he needed. He was jailed. He was tortured. And of course, he was crucified. And he willingly did that. He willingly did that for everybody so we could have eternal life. He didn't have to. He came from his heavenly home down here to what many could consider a miserable circumstance of, with changes, just to save us because he loved us. And I look at that and I go, wow, the circumstances, how many of us would sit there and go, if we could have that position, would we be willing to give up a nice plush home to save others? But Jesus came to earth and he did that for us. And that brings me to John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Now, in this story, I gave you a couple examples. One of my own working with a horse, one with Beethoven, one with Edison, and one with Jesus. They were the iron in Proverbs 27:17. And they were clashing against iron. They were being sharpened. They were being an instrument for others. Are you going to be iron, or are you going to be something that iron will destroy? Thank you.